For more than a decade, FTI has strived to become the leader in the aftermarket performance transmission and converter industry. We've joined forces with McLeod Driveline Components under the leadership of Top Fuel Funny Car pilot Paul Lee, and now have a larger distribution network, more resources, and more power. Come see us in the pits and ask how you can join the FTI family. It's not cheating, it is the competitive edge.
This is WFO Radio.
Hey, everybody, WFO. That's right. It's Monday, and you're all very confused. Like, what's WFO doing on Monday? Isn't that the deal? And yes, the answer is it's just totally out of order. It's Madhouse in here. No, we've time shifted everything going on this week. We got Karen Stouffer on tomorrow. We got Alan Reinhart on today. Good news is most people don't watch this thing until days and weeks later. And so everybody is good to go. I am too. And you might be wondering, like, well, why? Why is this happening? It has something to do with spring break. You know, when you got a teacher in the family, spring break is a pretty big deal. So we're gonna honor the tradition in the United States of America of spring break. In the meantime, Alan Reinhart's getting ready. We got people out there. We want you to share the show, right? Share it. Get it out there. Fire it up. Get everything ready to go so we can talk a little NHRA drag racing. We're going to kind of do a first three races review. We're going to talk about who's hot, who's not, what's up, what's out, and all of these things. But first, I'm going to tell you about the people who make it possible for me to go WFO. And you might not need one of these folks right now, but you will. You will. And when you do, remember that they support WFO Radio. Like when you get an engine built, or maybe you're an engine builder. Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology, totalseal.com. You know, one of the bummers of the weather out there at the Gatornationals was that the Total Seal Trackside Tech Talk got washed out. But they'll have another one, and we'll let you know when it is. You can go to their website and do a lot of your business from the website. Look up rings, order rings, individual rings. They do it all on the website. If that doesn't work out, you can give them a call. Keith Jones, Lake Speed, Hartford, and the team over there doing a great job. TotalSeal.com. And yes, you got to download Hidden Horsepower. To whoever it was who sent that, glowing review of Hidden Horsepower, thank you so much. And yes, the guy with the hydrogen. Oh my gosh, amazing stuff. Copeland from Arrington. Burning hydrogen, no emissions. You could do it indoors. How great is that? FTIperformance.com. Already heard from them. Great to have Paul Lee on board with WFO. Whether you're a .90 racer, a big money bracket racer, you heard they have got some of the best parts and pieces that have ever been made ever. Check them out, FTIperformance.com. Our great buddy Marvin Rodak, Rodak's Coffee and Grills, 817-924-6821. Fans of WFO know that there's a WFO radio blend and different blends, drag racing themed, Bang the Blower, which makes a great espresso, plus tips, tools, and information for grilling. And if you're down there in Fort Worth, Texas, you might as well just call Marvin and stop on by. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School. Been following their Instagram like every day, new pictures of the Dragster Adventure, how much fun it is. You should definitely follow them on their social media, Instagram, Twitter, wherever they are, and get involved with the program. Drive a Dragster this year. You will love it. You will love it. There's nothing like it. FrankHawley.com. And then samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. They say start your education at full speed. What kind of education? Well, they've got engine block and cylinder head and CNC programming and motorsport EFI tuning. And if any of that is in your wheelhouse for your career, which it should be as racing fans, all you kids out there, give them a call. Go to samtech.edu, call Brian Massengill, get him on the phone, say WFO right in his ear. WFO, and he'll know exactly where you came from. And he hopefully will not hang up the phone on you. And there you go. Later on in the show, we'll tell you how to become a Patreon and be one of our top secret VIP listener club members and get a little extra swag, which hopefully will go out soon. But right now we're going out, speaking of going out, to Tucson, Arizona, a place that I have been, Wild West Engineering, and the voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, who is all tournament up. He's ready. What's up, AR?
How do I look?
You look great. You look great. But my University of Miami Hurricanes are still in at the Sweet 16, playing real well. And so, who knows what will happen down the road?
Well, yeah, that's why we play them, right? I mean, who thought the Peacocks would still be hanging around? But it's been a very entertaining tournament so far. We got TCU scared the heck out of us last night, took us to overtime, but we prevailed. So now we'll catch our breath and head to San Antonio and see what we can do next.
I was in Vegas Wednesday and Thursday for the kickoff days of the tournament. And it was just a crazy vibe, right? Like, 'cause it was also St. Patty's Day on Thursday. So you had like these cross currents of chaos coming through, the degenerate sports gamblers and the degenerate drinkers and just general degenerates who are always there. Everybody having a good time. It was pretty wild watching the games in that mass setting and getting excited for NHRA 4-wide out there in a couple of weeks. People were talking about big things coming to town, and wherever I could, I was like, NHRA Drag Racing coming a week after next.
So which degenerate team were you on anyway? Were you on the drinking team or the basketball team or just the general Vegas degenerate team?
All of them. I am a multi-degenerate. It depends
opportunity degenerate.
Absolutely. But on this one, I was a degenerate gambler mostly, and didn't fare so well either. Didn't do terribly. I've done worse, but it wasn't like a big hit or anything. I placed a nice little wager on Kyle Larson yesterday. That went poorly. I had Rutgers over Notre Dame, double overtime loss, the first game. That went poorly, but I did win on a couple others. UNC got me a win. That was nice. And just had fun, right? Just had fun thinking about nothing and everything all at once. And Vegas is coming back to life. I'm excited for next week. Hopefully people will go and fly in and be ready because we're going to have a great event.
Yeah, I was down in Daytona hanging out doing, except for the gambling thing, the sleep late and not accomplishing much, and went by and saw Pizza Joe and just basically like kicked around down in Daytona for a few days. So I figured that's my spring break. Now it's time to go to work. Now it's time to get busy.
Exactly. Jim checking in from Golden Valley, Arizona, and Derek saying, I'm going to think it's Tuesday all week. The reason we're doing this on Monday, everybody, is because what Alan just
Joe has
said.
a pedicure appointment tomorrow that he couldn't change. That's what we're doing here.
I've never done that, by the way. Like, I just, I don't know. There are some things that should just never happen with me, at least. No judgment to anybody that's into it, but it's just not going to happen. But no, Reinhart was on the beach last week, and I have the opportunity to go to the beach this week. And I was thinking, like, setting up the computer in a room and doing all that stuff at a hotel. I'm gonna just ask Reinhart to do it on Monday, and then when I disconnect, I will be genuinely disconnected. The good news is, though, Alan, me and Karen Stouffer are going to be here at 1:00 tomorrow talking about her amazing day, the best day ever in her life at a racetrack, 1:00 tomorrow. So there will be content for the WFO universe, no doubt. They just won't be able to communicate with me in real time. They can communicate with each other, apparently, and that goes on in the chat section when I'm not here, which is great. Like, the show can happen, and I can be here even when I'm not here. We're going to test that this week at 1:00 tomorrow with Karen Stouffer. She's going to be great, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Well, she ought to be. If she isn't happy about her performance last Sunday, she should quit racing. I mean, it's never going to be better than that. The other side of the coin is that you could almost at that point just do the old.
Yeah, that was definitely a mic drop moment. Absolutely.
And they've got a great motorcycle right now. It still remains to be seen kind of where everybody else is, I think. But, in terms of, okay, tell me about your dream day. Well, I'm going to run the quickest run in history. And then I'm going to go quicker.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go still quicker than the record. And then I'm going to close it off with the third quickest run in history. And I'm going to win the race. And that's going to be my day. And it's like, okay, congratulations, Jim. That's one of those things that, somebody wrote that, you go, oh, that's a cute story. But they had a really good motorcycle. And, interestingly enough, I talked to Tim a little bit last week, Tim Kalungian, the crew chief for the Alligator guys, and he says there's more left. He said, into last year, we were running over 200 pretty regularly, and you look at those runs, we're going 197, 198. He said, so if I can keep the thing happy going out the back and not lose anything up front, he says, I think there's still a little more performance left. Not like another 10th and a half, but another 100th or two maybe. And he's pretty excited about it. Obviously, it's a great way to kick off the season. And they've got a motorcycle that seems to be doing what they tell it to do, at least for the most part. He said now he's got to get Jerry's responding like Karen's, and then he'll feel like he's really accomplished something.
Absolutely. Well, we had great conditions out there. The conditions were out of control,
sure,
but they had to take advantage of it, and they did, and they scored a win. And kind of like Trip Tatum, like Gavin is asking, is there going to be a show with Matt Hagan or Trip Tatum? Like, yeah, that's the intention. Absolutely. It's always the intention as we get ready to go into Vegas. We're going to connect with Matt and hopefully Trip and, like to let it breathe a little bit, right? Like I think Tripp was just on with Brian, and so we're going to let it breathe a little bit, but we will catch up with everybody. That is the goal of WFO. Lonnie says he's very proud of Karen, followed her for decades. Kaylin is out there. Hello, boys. Hello, Kaylin. See you up there when we get to D1, and very exciting stuff. I thought what we would do with this opportunity is to kind of just like look back at the first 3 races and talk about who's done well and who's surprised maybe on the negative, like who's not running as well as we might have thought. And looking at Top Fuel, Mike Salinas, the points leader over Justin Ashley. Mike Salinas, and you've said it a few times. It's not unfair to say that people left them for dead, right? Sure. Like, oh, that's it. They left them for dead. I remember being at the awards banquet and people saying, like that's when Rob Flynn first got floated as maybe the guy. And those scrapper guys, they were excited about what was going on, and they have confidence. And Mike has shown that he takes care of his guys and that he's a beloved leader, and they didn't leave. And look what they've done at the start of the season. Scrappers Racing, maybe stronger than ever before.
Well, I think a big part of that is Alan Johnson and his fingerprints. You look at him historically, when he left the Army team, they'd won 5 straight championships when he left the Army team, or 6 straight championships, whatever it was. And when he left, Mike Green came in. Mike Green is a really smart guy, got a lot of experience, been around forever. And Alan left basically the playbook, right? He didn't erase the computer. He didn't take all his notes. He didn't take all this stuff. He said, look, here's what I'm doing. This is a good place to start. And Mike was able to use that starting and then went on and won another championship. It was the same thing. When Alan left Tony Schumacher, everybody said, well, that's it. You'll never hear from him again. And then they won the championship the next year. And, Alan left Mike Salinas, from everything I've heard from both sides, on very good terms, very understanding split. And Mike told me face to face when we were at the PRI show, Alan is still helping. He's still going to kind of keep an eye on us, and he's going to still do what he needs to do. Rob's going to be my guy in the trailer. And, they've got all the notes. They've got all of the stuff. They've got all of the personnel, except for Brian Houston, I believe, that stayed. So the nucleus of the team was still there. And even though the head coach, so to speak, moved on, he left his playbook behind, and they're just picking up right where they left off last time. And I think they're going to be just fine. And I think, that they certainly have surprised a lot of people. I don't know that I'd put me on that list because, again, I've seen this happen before. And, I think I'm not surprised at all by what they've been doing. Justin Ashley had a great start to the season and then stumbled a little bit in Phoenix and then had an okay at Gainesville. Gainesville's very tough, though, because, the one qualifying session and then to have at it, and especially with the call-out race thrown in the middle of it, the 3 big-name DNQs that didn't come around to play on Sundays. So I don't know how realistic of a sample that is. And I'm not taking anything away from Tripp Tatum. He pulled up to the starting line every time, and he outran the guy in the other lane every time. That's what you got to do. That's your job. So congratulations to him. But it's difficult for me, and it's the same thing with Karen. Karen had a tremendous day. But if they had had a qualifying run or two, or if one of the Vance and Hines bikes had got down the track, if Matt had got down the track, if somebody else had hit the baseline right off the bat, who knows what their performance would have been. So the fact that they figured it out quicker than everybody else makes them look like heroes. And they are. I mean, you look at what they did. But I don't think that's a fair sample size when so many of the others never really got a shot at the racetrack.
Absolutely. No, there's got to be a bigger sample size, and we'll see. You mentioned Karen again, and she brought up exactly what you said last week about, I wonder what would have happened if Matt Smith had brought the Red Rocket out on that given race, and something he's used to, and obviously it shows he's committed to the new program, but a lot of wondering. Not a big enough sample size, one run. When you look at the point standings, though, Tony Schumacher, Sean Langdon, Amon Brown, and Leah all outside the top 10. Plus Billy is down there in 16th. They're going to run a fair amount of races. They'd love to try to make the countdown again in the top 10 without running all the races. That's pretty much the point they're proving by doing that. But it's going to be very interesting. That DNQ did hurt several racers, and they're all on the outside of the top 10 in the points. Now, plenty of racing to go. Plenty of racing to go. They're moving in the right direction. I just saw John Kernan did a bit with Tony and Dickie Venables at Tony Stewart Racing, that Tony says he feels like they're ahead of where they expected to be with Leah's car. So that's good. But this next race in Vegas, a 4 wide, good opportunity to show it.
Well, I think what they really need over there, just for everything to come together on the right day. Okay. I mean, Leah had a solid car in Pomona. Leah had a solid car in Phoenix. Both of those races, she was late on the starting line and it cost her. And she said, if you go back and look at her social media, I'm putting so much pressure on myself. I baby double stepped. She said, I need to relax and get into my groove. We all know she can drive a race car. And then, of course, they go down to Gainesville with the one run as part of the call out. They didn't get down to racetrack cleanly on that run, so they end up being a D&Q. But it's not like they're completely out to lunch. The car's not that far off. They had one bad run in Gainesville, so that makes it a D&Q. Any other week, they have one bad run. Nobody notices because you come back the next run and you put the thing right in the middle of the field and you go on. And, she had a couple of driving miscues early in the season, but she owned it. She stood right up and said, this is what happened. This is the deal. It's on me. I know what I'm doing and I know how to fix it and I'm going to do it. She just never got a chance to prove that in Gainesville. So I'm not really worried about that program at all. I'll tell you one that I'm surprised, and that is Tony Schumacher that you mentioned. I really figured coming out of the box, they went to Houston a year ago, right? I mean, kind of threw together a team at the last minute, got, an old car out of the rafters, so to speak, and came out and ran real well and won the race. And I'm surprised that 3 races in that he hasn't made a little bit more noise. I'm certainly not writing him off. I just expected them to come out of the blocks a little hotter than they have.
Yes. Well, sitting 11th, got a round win at the Winter Nationals. But I agree. And it's a momentum sport, right? Like college basketball. Like you get on a groove, you get rolling, you're feeling things are clicking. And that's when you do well and you go on a run. And we'll see who goes on a run. And we already know who has been doing pretty well. Clay Milliken sitting right in the middle of the points. They've had kind of an up and down situation, but I think if you talk to them about being 5th in the points after 3 races, I feel like they'd be pretty happy with that. Trip Tatum is right in the middle. Josh Hart, Doug Foley, Austin Prock, Doug Coletta rounding out the top 10. Kind of interesting. Steve Torrence, winless just yet. Oh, panic time, Capco. Yeah. Not really. They're working on stuff, but it's just an interesting subject. Like, when do they say, let's go win a race? And win a race just to announce their arrival in 2022?
I don't think they need to. I mean, I think everybody knows they're there. I talk to Bobby regularly. I know you do. I talk to Richard Hogan a little bit. And basically, the last few years, they felt like they've had a performance that was at least equal or a tick better than everybody else out there. And now they feel like everybody's pretty much caught up. Part of that's their own fault. The old story about, I armed my enemies. They're building so many cars out there and they're doing stuff for all these other teams that are now competing head to head against them. And they're having to pay the price a little bit. But they've got some things in the works that they believe is going to put them back at a performance advantage over the rest of the field. And they're willing to write off a few races early in the season to do it. If it takes them 5, 6, 7 races, and then they come back to where they are, 200-300s in front of the field, where they've been, not counting Brittany, those 2 cars have been kind of spaced themselves out from the field for the last few years. But if they get that advantage back, then they go ripping through the summer. And, all they really want to do is be ready when we get into the countdown to the championship. And, sure, you'd like to be in the top 3 or 4, but that's not really necessary. We've seen that over the years. I think that right now they're giving up, some potential race wins. You go back to a combination where you go, okay, we could be right in the mix with the rest of these guys, but they don't want to get even. They want to get ahead. And sometimes in order to get ahead, you've got to give up some stuff. And that's exactly what they're doing now. At least that's the way I'm seeing it from my bird's eye view in the tower.
No, I agree. And just some anecdotal conversations. You can stick with something too long and be surpassed. Right. And I think that Bobby and Hoagie and those guys know that they've got to keep experimenting to find the next thing that's going to work. And so that's what they're working. And meanwhile, though, wasn't Tripp kind of a win for the Capco team? Yeah, definitely emotionally. But, I don't know if I've seen Bobby as excited as that. That might have been the most excited I've ever seen him for that car to go out there and get a win. But it's a satellite car. Like, it's not necessarily a team car. It's a satellite car, because there's a lot of Capco satellites out there right now with, the Ninja, obviously that car. Krista's car is kind of a satellite in ways, assembled and kind of gone through by Bobby and Dominic. So it's going to be very interesting. There's always, let's say, a clone car, whatever we want to call it, Those guys now know exactly what it takes to go out there and win races, and they can assemble it and build it. And that's kind of what we talked about last week, right? The roadmap to success in Top Fuel is very clear. Buy this list, have these people build it, and then get somebody who knows what they're doing to turn the knobs, and you got a shot to win. And that's a kind of new territory. It's good territory.
I agree. And I think that's what's making Top Fuel fun right now, is that there's so many that can win. You go back a few years pre-Capco, and, you look at Don Schumacher domination. Alan Johnson, of course, won the one with Brittany, and he was competitive everywhere he went. The Colettas have been in the mix. But other than that, there hasn't been anybody that didn't have their own shop. Clay Millican certainly had his, flashes of brilliance. But what the Capco boys have proven is you don't have to have a fabrication shop. You don't have to have a chassis shop. You don't have to have 97 CNC machines. If you've got the budget, the parts are available to make you successful. All you've got to do now is find the people that are smart enough to bolt them together. And as you said, the person who turns the knobs.
And this was, it's great. These are the moments that are great that we've been doing the show in one way or another back to 2005 on XM satellite radio. Like, this show has been continuing. It was NHRA Tuesday and the first nationwide NHRA drag racing themed show. Maybe we don't make a big enough deal about that, but at this point, really, who cares? But when NHRA kind of foresaw this future by locking in the development rules, like, guys, like, you can make a lot of power right now. Let's make this sport less about development and more about buying the right stuff and tuning and adjusting on race day. When was that? I felt like 2008, something in that area, where the whole like development, secret development. No, you have to approve everything. Everything has to be NHRA approved, all of that stuff. That's, well over 10 years ago now, and we're reaping the benefits. Like, it's pretty much locked in. You're going to make 11,000 horsepower. You can do some things to it, but it's not secret stuff anymore. It's purchasable stuff. And now people can buy it, and they're doing well.
Well, the writing was on the wall. When you look at the people that have very solid, if not unlimited budgets, right? Whether you're talking about DSR in its old form, or whether you're talking about Coletta, or whether you're talking about Force, and they would literally spend themselves into oblivion to win. And as long as you've got the income coming in, I do the same thing. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but that's typical racer mentality. If I can keep spending and basically just outspend everybody and outrun everybody and win every race, I'm going to do that. That's not overall good for the sport, but that's not the way most racers think. Most racers think, I came to win the race, and that's just the mentality that takes over. So when NHRA said, okay, stop, right? No more, as you said, secret stuff, no more trick cylinder heads, no more this, that, the other, then everything stabilizes, and now it starts becoming available to everybody, because there were a number of manufacturers out there. It's my belief that, if I'm racing and I'm also selling you parts, as soon as I come out with the Reinhart Stage 8, okay, Joe, here, I'll sell you my Reinhart Stage 7 stuff, which is better than the Stage 5 stuff that you had, but you ain't never going to see Stage 8 until I come out with Stage 9 or 10. And that's how I keep myself in front of you, is that, look, and if you want to go build your own, have at it. But most can't afford to do that. And so that's the way they were living. That's the way they were surviving out there on the road. Once everything stabilized, then it became, okay, if the Reinhart Stage 12 is it, well, I've now spent whatever I've spent developing this thing. The only way I'm going to recoup some of my investment is if I start selling them to my competitors. And in order to do that, I have to have the belief that I'm smart enough to outrun you with the same stuff. And that's the way, that's the way Don Schumacher thought. And, we've talked about it a few times. He wasn't afraid to sell anything that was on his cars because he felt like he had the smartest people there. And if he didn't, that was his fault. He needed to get the smarter people in there. And that was good for the sport. That was good for DSR. It was financially good for Don. And so it just keeps everybody moving down the road. But, I remember there was the classic when Pro Stock went to fuel injection, and the KB guys figured it out first, right? Yep. I mean, no doubt about it. They came out and they're just barnstorming. And so somebody said to Greg one time somewhere around Topeka, I said, I'm afraid you might win every race this year. And he said, I'm afraid I might not. And he knows as well as anybody that one team winning every race a year is not good for the sport overall, but it's good for him. And it's good for his sponsors to be on TV as maximum exposure every week. It's good for him. That's his job, is to go out there and try to win every race. His job isn't to go out there and go, okay, well, gee, maybe we should give some away, because his job is to go out there and try to win every race. And that's what everybody does. You know, if you ask Richard Freeman, would it be good for the sport if Elite wins every race? He'd say probably not.
He froze up. It's like just a pause right at the end of a point, right? He made a point and he froze up. So let's see what happens. How long will he be frozen? It's a good question. I'm not frozen. Let's kick Alan out. Let's give him another second to come back. And then let's kick him out. Kick from the studio. Now, am I still on? That's a good question. Let's see what this guy says. Can Krista go a few rounds at a race again this year? Probably win one, or possibly win one. Jim says he thinks that she will. I think she will go some rounds. Krista has impressed me. She needs money. Like, that's the thing. She's under budget, right? But Trip Tatum made a 1 second. He's texting me. We still on. Reconnect. There it is. We'll see. Scott says, you only bet on sports, Joe? What else is there? That's interesting. I'm not a big gambler guy, honestly. I'm not really a big gambler guy. I'll do it every once in a while. Thank you very much, Lynette. Reinhardt's like, is it me or you? It's like, it's you. And in this case, it's better that it's Reinhart and not me. Look at this guy. Boy, it was going so well. Listen.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just went good. And then I looked down and it said, you have no internet. And I went, I used to have internet.
You used to. Yeah.
So now apparently I have internet again.
Exactly. But you sound weird. You sound funky like a monkey. Like,
really?
Yeah. Who knows? I don't think it's anything that you can do. I think we just have to let the internet stabilize, and we'll see what we'll just keep on going. We'll keep moving forward. The audience loves this because it's real, Alan. They love the reality of it. All right, let's move to Funny Car, where Robert Hight, Matt Hagan, Ron Capps, Cruz Pedregon are the top four in points, and I kind of feel like that demonstrates exactly who has run the best this year. Like, Robert Hight has been the best by a tiny fraction over Matt Hagan. Ron Capps has been good, but not quite scored just yet. And Cruz Pedregon had a great car, but he went red. Had a red light start that really, that race could have gone very differently if he hadn't gone red. Funny Car is just, we're used to it being a knockdown, drag out war among some of the best, and that's exactly what it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I think so. And you look at the top four right now, and aren't they, not counting Robert, because Robert certainly didn't close the season last year like we expect the Auto Club car. But those other three, wasn't that the cream of the crop last year?
Yes.
And, when Robert said at the end of the season, we've got something to prove when we come back next year, we're better than whatever they finished, 7th or 8th or something in the points. And I think that they spent a lot of time during the winter break making sure that they were prepared when they hit the ground in Pomona to come out and prove that they are still a championship caliber team. And I think that they've done that. The four that you mentioned, I think, are all certainly, solidly achieving. I think, the one thing that might have been a little bit of a question mark in some minds was Ron Capps, simply because the ownership change and the extra responsibility, and would there be distractions, and and the fact that, he brought the entire team with him, and the confidence level over there is as high as it could possibly be, and they really haven't changed anything. So no matter what Ron may have for distractions, as long as once he gets in the car and puts a helmet on, he's Ron Capps' world champion driver, then that team's going to be just fine. I think the biggest surprise for me so far has been Paul Lee. I really expected that car to be stronger. I'm not saying that I expected it to come out and, be duking it out with Capps and Hagan and Hight, but I really expected that car to be more of a factor than it has been. I know, I've talked to him. I know, Jimmo's frustrated about it. I know that Paul Lee's a little frustrated about it. It certainly is not lack of effort. It's not, they've just haven't been able to find whatever the secret thing is to make that car click. But that to me has been one of the bigger surprises in Funny Car.
Yes, and everybody out there, I did fix it somehow. I went through my settings, the Reinhart. We did while we were flying.
It was you. Because it's an internet problem. Everybody goes, "Oh, it must be Reinhart. He's such an idiot. He can barely turn on a computer." But it was you.
Wasn't me. I fixed it. I didn't cause it. On that note, though, Alan, I have heard, and it's not my job to break news for people, but there's been discussion about maybe some changes over there at that team, and I agree. Paul, who I've gotten to know better since he has come on and sponsored WFO with FTIperformance.com, but I've kind of been like following Paul's career for a long time, and how he's been like wanting to do this for a lifetime, right? He's been around since the 80s, and now he's doing it, and he's not going to wait around is the point, right? He's not just going to toil in vain for a long part of the season. He's going to make maneuvers and moves and get that team through force of will, if he has to where it needs to be. The question is, who's available to help? Like, if there were to be changes at that team or not, who's available? We've been talking about this crew chief shortage, if you will, like the brain drain that is out there with the multiple team owners now, and you've got to have two. And so who is available to help? And the only people that I've been thinking about, like I think about Rob Wendland, who was out there, who was most recently tuned Terry McMillan's car. But prior to that, Johnny Gray's car at DSR, and Rob was doing pretty well there. Okay, so he's out there. I don't know what his commitment is to Dan Mercier and Terry McMillan necessarily, but it's a part-time gig as opposed to a full-time gig. But who else, right? It's a very challenging time to find people who are going to be an improvement over the guys that have already got these jobs.
Well, that's certainly true, but I also think that maybe instead of, okay, we need to just, can this person and bring this person in to take over, maybe you could form an alliance with somebody. Maybe you could get somebody to share information, somebody to come over and just kind of be an extra set of eyes. Jim Oberhofer's been around the sport a long time, and he is a really smart guy. And you don't have the longevity that he's had in the sport without being a smart guy and without learning some stuff. Is there something that maybe he's overlooking or something that he's missing or something? I don't know. I think if I'm Paul Lee, I might reach out to Jono and just say, hey, would you be willing to, would Connie be okay with you spending a little time with us, just trying to figure out, what is it we're missing here? Because, Paul is the kind of guy, and this is a description that fits a lot of very competitive, very successful people. Okay. I have a goal, Joe. My goal is to get to the top of that mountain over there. And if you come in and say, okay, I can get you to the top of the mountain, I'm going to say, what do you need? And
Right.
if you say, well, I'm going to need ropes and I'm going to need boots and I'm going to need, okay, I'll give you the tools. I'm going to give you damn sure better get me to the top of the mountain. Because if we get halfway up there and then you go, well, I should have, no. You came, you told me that you could help me achieve the goal. You told me what tools you needed. I equipped you. I now expect you to perform. And, for whatever reason, they're just not clicking over there. And it literally might be something as simple as just having somebody come in and look everything over and go, oh, you're putting this in backwards. Right? How many times have we seen that? And all of a sudden, whatever it is that they're missing. So I don't know. I haven't spoken to Paul about this, and I'm certainly not, I'm not speaking of any inside information. I'm just thinking about things that would make sense. If I'm him, I might approach in this way. Is there somebody out there that could come in and consult for us for a couple, 3 races, even if it's somebody that's got a commitment to another team? How many times have we seen somebody, racers helping racers to get them through a trouble spot, to get them over a bump in the road? And then, they kind of pull back and everybody goes and does their own thing. So is that a possibility? I don't know. If I'm Paul Lee, that's something I would at least be exploring. Is there somebody out there that can come over, spend some time with us, maybe at a Monday or Tuesday test someplace? Just come out, look over what we're doing, and see if you can figure out what it is we're missing, because they got a lot of really smart guys over there, but there's something that's just not quite right.
Right. And everyone, Michael is pointing out that Ron Tobler is someone that would have been that person in the past. Since they built the car, it's pretty much a clone of Cap's 5-disc Napa cars from the past. Of course, across the Nitro Alley, you've got John Collins over there at Cruise. But I think Cruise is, the guys that really know the 5-disc. I think Cruz, one of the reasons he hired those guys is for them to be his, right? And, I don't know how into helping other people Cruz might be like, wait a second, why am I going to send my guys over there? And now that Force is over there hiring Tobler to work on the top fuel car, I don't know how available those guys are now to be helpful like they once were. And that's a dynamic that's just under the surface that I don't know what the answer is. But I agree. We want to see Paul Lee do well, and I think he ultimately will. It's just you got to get to it. I think 4-wide drag racing is a good time to do it, though, because you don't even have to get to the finish line first. You just got to get there in the top 2, and that's kind of a get well week. You don't even have to get there first. Just get there first or second.
We'll see. I know that they're looking forward to it. I know that Jeff and his guys up there at the strip at LVMS are probably already at work because they never stop trying to make that place better, trying to make the experience better for the fans. So, I'm looking forward to heading out there, and just give us good weather. Please just give us good weather.
Yes. Yeah. After Gainesville, we've got PTSD. We've got weather PTSD. Let's talk a little pro stock. No, really, we do. Like, people are like, oh my gosh, the weather, it was so terrible. But we got it in, folks. That's what you got to look at. You got to look at, did the Gatornationals happen? Yes. Did we have winners? Yes. Was it a great race? Yes. Move on. It would be great if they could all be perfect. But Aaron Stanfield, the points leader over Erica by 60. And then Kid Chaos is third, 67 back. Dallas Glenn, 87 back. Mason McGahey, Greg Anderson, the champ, is sixth, 118 back. Roger Brogdon, Troy Coughlin, Derek Kramer, Camry Caruso holding on to a top 10 spot. On the outside looking in, Bo Butner, Matt Hartford, Fernando Quadra, Christian Quadra, Chris McGahey. So you got 15 good quality pro stock cars that are going to be out there for every race, as I understand, and 5 good ones on the outside looking in. Pro stock has been exactly what we expected, like very competitive with the elite cars with a slight performance advantage, but not impossible to overcome, as Dallas Glenn showed.
Well, the elite cars certainly were the class of the field for the first couple of races. But then we go into Gainesville, and part of it was certainly the one qualifying session. Nobody had a chance to get in the groove. Nobody had a chance to really find their comfort zone. And the KB guys ended up rising to the top of that one, taking home the trophy. I'm really surprised, a couple of them. Erica has not been Erica behind the steering wheel. And I love her to death, but I think she'd tell you the same thing. She just has not been, normally for Erica, normal is 20. When you need to be, you're 008 or 009. And if you miss it, you might be 35. And that just hasn't been Erica this year. And I don't know if it's a car thing, if it's a driver thing, but I think she would tell you the same thing. Matt Hartford, I think the old classic Warren Johnson line, he said one time, I'd never dream of asking anybody for good luck. If you can just make the bad luck stop, I'll take it from there. Just erase the bad luck and let me take it from there. And I think that's the kind of position they're in. They've got all the tools, they've got the people, but they end up with, a mislabeled fuel jug. How often does that happen? Once every 5 years? Yeah. And then they've just had the misfortune of making a bad run in the good session or just ending up in a bad spot on the ladder. And I think, they've shown over the last 3 or 4 years that they're capable of going out there running with and in front of about anybody. They just need to get the misfortune behind them somehow, some way. And I don't know, if you have a seance or an exorcism or, you get some hair of frog and eye of newt and mix it up in a cauldron. I don't know what you got to do but something to get rid of whatever the evil spirit is that's been chasing them around.
I think that they did. I think the Gatornationals was that race for them because they scored their first round win of the year. Number one. So they got a round win, a legit round win. And then, had an identical ET run against Brogdon, and Hartford was beaten on the starting line by a couple of foul, right? But it was progress. They ran well. They didn't run terribly. They were in the mix and, lost on a little baby hole shot, right? So I don't know. They were out there having a good time. The team was staying at the same hotel we were. So I got to see them kind of interacting, and they were all like, positive. There was kind of I don't know. I think they did that, and I expect them to run better coming up. But we'll see, right? We'll see how it goes. Now, Bart, talk about looking backwards, Bart. If they had postponed the Gators 1 week, it would have ran great. The weather was great. Of course, the weather was great the week we didn't run. But if we had postponed it, the weather that weekend would have been terrible. Don't you understand how it all works, Bart?
Well, the biggest thing with that is look at the grandstands on Sunday. And everybody that knows anything about NHRA drag racing knows that Gainesville is a destination race.
Yes.
Okay. The vast majority of those people don't live in Gainesville. They come to Gainesville for the weekend. They spend a couple of nights in hotels. And I thought one of the most fascinating things when we had the director of the Chamber of Commerce or somebody at the racetrack a few years ago said the Gatornationals is the single biggest economic impact to the community, period.
Yes. He said like 10 times the size of anything of the next biggest thing. The gentleman who was there on the starting line, our honorary starter, and he said it's 10 times bigger than the next biggest thing. And he hung out all day, presented trophies on Fox Sports 1, which I thought was really cool. You know, normally those guys, they're like, and then they bolt after the first round. He hung out all day long. And yes, there's a lot of big events that happen in Gainesville with the University of Florida.
Of course. But you look at football games and the number of people that fly in, watch the game, fly out, or maybe hang out for one night. And does it have a big impact? Certainly. Does it have the impact of having a crowd come down there and spend 4 or 5 days or an entire week? And apparently, according to them, no. So that's a big deal. And if you had said, like a lot of people I talk to, you know, Tuesday, they're going, they should pull the plug on this thing. Okay. You're not going to get your airplane ticket back. You're not going to get your hotel back, at least not all of it. You might be able to postpone, do some of that stuff. What about your vacation time that you took? What about the other? How many of those fans that made the commitment to come down and watch the race and support NHRA would not have been able to come back if we'd have changed it? And can you imagine social media when everybody and his mother's going, Sunday, what's wrong with NHRA? This is the most beautiful day in the world. They'd be setting world records. They'd be doing, you know, and those idiots canceled the race. I can hear it now. So you have to try to run the race. I don't fault anything that we did. I hate the fact that we had to deal with the weather that we did, but I understand every inch of it. And there's no way you can make a different decision in that area. I mean, you know, people literally fly from other countries to come in and be part of Gainesville. What are you going to tell them? Come back next week or hang out for a week? You just can't do that. So you have to run the race when it's scheduled, if at all possible. And in that case, it was, because Sunday was beautiful, and we being NHRA would have been lit up if we had pushed the race back and then Sunday was like it was, and everybody would have said, you could have run the race. Now what? And so, you know, everything they did, they had to do. It made it a bit of a struggle, especially through qualifying for the sportsman racers, but we got it in. Sunday was a whale of a show. You know, the stuff we saw on Sunday, we would not have seen the following week. I was there. The weather wasn't quite as good. Sorry. You know, we weren't talking about below sea level density altitude stuff for the pro stock machines. So, you know, we wouldn't have seen the race that we saw. So I think, you know, they had to do what they had to do. One more pro stock note before we go on. Mason McGahey is making me a believer. He really is. I mean, that young man, what he's been doing on the starting line on a regular basis. And I think if they can just find, you know, this much more performance in that car, because I think he's been driving every bit as solid as Dallas Glenn, who gets a lot of credit for what he does behind the wheel, and rightfully so. But Mason McGahey has been really tearing it up on the starting line. And I guarantee you, if they can find another 100th or 100th and a half in that car, that kid's going to be deadly.
Yeah, and he's going to do better. I had a great conversation with him in the restaurant after, you know, everybody stays at the same hotel for the most part in Gainesville. That Motel 6 is the best town. But anyway, but, you know, he wants to show his personality, right? But, here he's a 20-year-old kid. He's going to engineering school. He's like, what do I want to be? Like, what am I? And it's kind of interesting to see him because he's very good on the starting line. And he's going to go rounds. He's going to win races. And when that happens, what's he going to be? Brad says the forecast hasn't changed since Friday. They could have postponed it before Monday. No, that doesn't work. Brad, just give up, man. Just give up on this point, because the second we made a decision, the space-time continuum would have changed. And everything that you know as reality would have been a different reality. And so the weather might not have been great. You got to understand that. That's just the way
these. If you had taken vacation.
It's Bart. Sorry.
Bart, I'm sorry. If you had taken vacation, bought plane tickets, locked down your hotel reservations a long time in advance with one of those, you know, great fee, no refund, no change deals, and then NHRA changed the event date based on a forecast, and the sun came out Sunday, you would be one of them screaming, I invested thousands of dollars in this, and they canceled the race for no reason. They owe me. You have to try to run the race. And that's what we did.
And I respect you, Bart. I just think that your answer would be different if the situation was different. Like Alan said, NHRA would have got lit up. Absolutely. We've seen it 100 times. People will go and complain immediately if we canceled it. And another thing, if we canceled it on Tuesday, it would have been a beautiful weekend. Like, that's another thing. Like, that's what Mother Nature does to people. And she laughs because that's what, when you have that kind of power, you do it. Daniel says, Joe, what's up, Joe and Alan? Daniel here from Texas. Can you mention anything about Houston Raceway Park already having events scheduled in 2023? I can tell you this, as Alan is frozen up, I can tell you this, that as I go to Houston, I am under the impression it is the final, we're going to kick him out again. I don't know why this is happening today of all days. I'm under the impression that this is the final NHRA national event at Houston, but I have been hearing rumblings that the people that needed the warehouses that were going to go on the track don't need them exactly as rapidly as is possible. And so maybe there was going to be a year-by-year deal. I haven't seen or heard confirmation that there could be another last event. But if that was in fact the case, I'm okay with it. If we could get another last event in 2023 and do a year-by-year deal, if Seth Angel is down to do that, yeah, I would be okay with that. Reconnect. And this will be the last time we do that. This will be our excuse to end. Reconnect. Alan Reinhart. So that is my opinion on that. Steve says, I flew from California to go to Gainesville race a few years ago. The weather was not good, cleared up, whatever. Hey, he's back. All right, home stretch, Alan Reinhart. Home stretch.
I switched to my phone. The first time I still to my phone.
Excellent. This guy had asked about Houston having an event scheduled in 2023 already. Do you know anything about that? I said that, maybe they'll do a year-by-year thing if those warehouses aren't needed immediately, which is the scuttlebutt that I've heard.
There was a social media post, a TX20 tonight is kind of a rolling organization, streetcar that does down there, and that they would be back for an event next year. I have no idea dates, what time, no. I haven't heard anything that leads me to believe it would.
Exactly. All right. So anyway, whatever the reason is, we're having a little bit of sketchy internet. So let's just part ways, Alan. I thought this was a great look back at the first three races. I appreciate the effort. Is there a final thought you have for folks out there? Yeah, the internet. Sketchy. Okay. I'm really
here now.
Yeah. All right. So your final thought.
I hope.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Maybe you don't hear me. All right. I'm just gonna, for whatever reason, this is not working today. That's it.
I think that the internet gods think this should be a Tuesday thing, and they're mad at you.
That's exactly correct. But I have heard that, and that's good. So say goodbye to everyone, Alan, and I'll clean it up after.
All right. Sorry about the issues. Next Tuesday, we'll talk Vegas.
Exactly. Great job, Alan. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart. Thank you, Alan.
Go Cats.
Yes. Good luck to your team. Good luck to your team until they play the Canes. There you go, Alan Reinhart. Thank you, Alan. That was great. Let's see. Maybe I should be absent more often, huh, Scott? Yeah, maybe you should. Let's see. I didn't know you guys paid attention to reaction times. We do. Scott says Ignition was great. All right. Put your comments in the comment section, your final thoughts about anything we have discussed. And Bart, hopefully you're cool and understand me using that analogy. I believe that the space-time continuum breaks and things are not necessarily exactly what they would have been had you made a different decision. You could always regret everything, right? Oh my gosh, I caught that red light, right? If I had not caught that red light, what was going to happen to me up ahead there? Maybe a meteorite would have fallen on my head. Who knows? Unproductive, right? Like to look backwards at maybe this or that. We could have got 4 days in if the weather, it's just unproductive. There's no point in it because there's nothing we can do to change the past, right? If you change the past and you look ahead to change the future, the next time we're in that situation, it's not a good deal either because you just don't know. The real thing is we got 2 out of 3 days of Camping World Series racing in. We had great crowds both of those days. The Saturday and Sunday crowds were mega. Everybody enjoyed it. And that's it. There's a lot of different Gatornationals that have happened over the years. Some have been rain delayed. Some have been rain postponed. Some have been rained out. You just don't know. I think that they did the best possible job. And really, the NHRA Safety Safari deserves incredible credit for what they did. Those guys, they need sleep. They need rest. They need nutrition and nourishment. They're not robots. They're human beings that get there somehow way before everybody else, and they stay way beyond everyone else, and they're at the next race in advance, and they stay after. And they did it. They're heroes. If you love drag racing, they're heroes. They're not like someone who goes into a raging fire to save an infant child or a cat. But for a drag racing universe, they sometimes have to rage into a fire and save somebody. And they're also scraping the track and working the track and prepping the track and taking care of just the most regular of business on the starting line, working the blowers, working the mops, sitting in the truck, a job that, I don't know, unless you love drag racing, which they all do, you're just sitting in a truck until the millisecond that you're needed. And then you've got to be 100% and ready to go. Safety Safari is a very serious job that, they deserve great respect. And, to sit around another week, think about all the different elements. Think about the financial element. Okay, we postpone it a week. Well, now maybe you're going to get an extra day, but how much did it cost to do that? And maybe the event is upside down. In the end, numbers got to match. There's 100 things that most people don't think about, including myself. I'm that person too. But I think they did a really good job. Jeff knows it's the Russian hackers is the reason they got to Alan Reinhart. The Russian hackers. How about that? We don't talk about stuff like that on WFO very often, on Ignition occasionally, although not this week. But very sad what's going on. Very upsetting and angry, right? See innocent people fighting the way that they are over in Ukraine. But boy, are they tough. God love them. Got to appreciate them. Norwalk is letting us track pullers play on the strip. Oh, good. Just don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. No, at Norwalk, they'll be fine. Never saw AR so quiet. That's true, Dale. Bobby Graham. Rain means more time to troll the pits. That's what I believe, Bobby. But this kind of rain was not the kind of rain that you could be out in. Thank you for taking some time with the Sports and Racers. There's a new bit that we've been doing on NHRA social media that we believe we're calling it Designated. And it's one at least of the first 3 designated pair to roll out in Stock Eliminator for elimination, which would typically be on either a Friday or Saturday morning. But in this case, it was on Monday morning. And so Nikki Shealy, who is the social media director for NHRA, and myself went out to the track just to see if we could do something, right? And we were able to capture Steve Foley and Greg Lubin battling it out. And it was great. It was the first ever eliminations run for the 572 crate motor for Team Chevy, which I think is a historic moment. As far as I know, it's the first one I've seen in competition. We're only 3 races in. I didn't see one out west. Nobody was talking about one. So that's possible. The engine was just kind of debuted at SEMA. So that was a big deal. Greg Lubin has got a WFO sticker on his car, which is cool. He's designated. They're the first pair down the racetrack. And so we do a little pre-interview. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What's the story? Okay, that's your plan. Go over to the next guy. What are you going to do? Reinhart calls the race, and then we go down to the ET shack, and we get their raw reaction. So why am I telling you this? Well, if we want more of elements like that, and like a lot of communication from Lucas Oil Series racers that give us more coverage, showcase us more. I think this thing should have been retweeted way more times, guys, by racers themselves. 10, 11, 9, 12, the share numbers, not nearly enough. And I understand I'm not sharing if it's not me in the bit, right? That's the racer mentality. Let's face it. Racers claim they want to help each other all the time, but there are times that they do not. And when it comes to notoriety, that's when they do not. Their job is to keep everybody else anonymous and make themselves famous, right? We need our Lucas Oil Series racers to share some of that stuff. If there's content created about Lucas Oil Series racers, even if it's not you, it would be really great if you could share it out there, because someday it's going to be you, and you should do it. You should do it. Now, I don't want to imply in any way that this thing has done poorly. It has done great, but it needs to be greater. It needs to be shared out there. It needs to be something that everybody looks forward to and anticipates to see the reaction of stock eliminator racers after having to be first pair out. And it takes a considerable amount of work. And this is why. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? If the series, hates the Lucas Oil racers, like some consider that they say. And the answer is that's not true. This is more evidence to that. And we're working very hard to crush that opinion. We're going to crush it. We're going to crush it with our hard work and determination and care for our Lucas Oil Series racers. And so the day that someone says, oh, they don't care about us, everybody says, well, actually, there's a whole lot of evidence that they do. There's a whole lot of evidence that suggests that they do, that the people that are working so hard for just to showcase how awesome it is. And Greg Lubin, when he went 1,000 red, his reaction was priceless. Like, that's what it's like, man. Just nightmare. Good stuff. Foley went many rounds. We got down, I think, to the semifinal. Thanks to FTIperformance.com. Appreciate Paul Lee and the team. We spoke extensively about Paul Lee. I think you'll hear some things coming out of that team real soon. But if you're a .90 racer, you're a big money bracket racer, you want to call up FTIperformance.com. If here's the thing. Consistency comes from a couple of places. One is the carburetor. The other is a torque converter and transmission combination. Like real, raw, extreme consistency. Like those two elements are super important. And it's no accident that the cars with FTI performance torque converters and transmissions, they even have their own fluids, etc., are winning on a more than their fair share basis. And we have seen it over and over again. Troy Williams is pretty much a team car out there proving the point. He's won the million a couple of times. He's won the U.S. Nationals in Super Comp. He's had great success. Give him a call. Tell him you heard about it on WFO Radio, and you'll see. There's an area of potential improvement there if you're looking for that consistency. And the same is true for Total Seal piston rings about making power, right? Making power, efficient power, reducing the drag in your engine. Maybe you've got an old engine that's making whatever it made. By changing the piston rings, you can release hidden horsepower. And if you're going through a rebuild, a refresh, it's important to reach out to them. But honestly, we're coveting and courting engine builders and shops that have yet to understand that there is new technology that works better, lasts longer, makes more power. And it has to do with your recipe. Like Lake Speed calls it a soup, the recipe of cylinder bore finish, piston ring technology, etc. And even if you're restrained by the rules, they've got something that can help for you stock and super stock guys. Go to totalseal.com, call them, tell them WFO. That's it. First thing, WFO. It's the first thing you say. They might be confused, but I digress. Marvin Rodak is just selling coffee, guys. It's not really that big a deal other than every day you start off great. RodaxCoffeeandGrills.com, 817-924-6821. Call Marvin. The hot sauces and the spice rubs, habanero endorphin booster, my favorite. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School, the Dragster Adventure, FrankHawley.com. And samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. You could become a CNC programmer. We need you. It's not just what do you want to do. Like, what does your country need you to do? That's another thing, since we're thinking about that stuff a lot lately. Patreon. This is what we need you to do. No, the VIP Listener Club started off small. We got a lot of people on there now. It's amazing. Last night, sent out the text, Patreon Ignition Show. Because remember, we're a day ahead. We're all time shifted today, folks. And the Patreons were there. Sue Morris and others, everybody was there. It was great. Patreon.com/WFO Radio. And join or not. That's it. It's you decide whether it's worth your while or not. All right, final comments, and then we're out of here. Let's see. Gary says, playing in the rain with the Gators. Thanks, Joe and Alan. I did not see, but apparently Alex Laughlin had a radio-controlled boat, and he was like zooming around in a puddle or a creek or a lake or something, and an alligator ate it. And I heard they were going to use it on the show. I don't know if that made the show. Dragster Jeff, he's a Patreon. Some of the best times I've had at the track have been during a rainout, hanging with my dad and fellowship at the track with my racing family. Dragster Jeff is a Patreon, and he is absolutely right. But at the same time, Jeff, like there are fans that go out to the parking lot after the top field final round goes. There are fans that go to the parking lot before the final rounds go. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy. You come down to the winner's circle, you hang out, you never sit in traffic, you meet the drivers, you get amazing, interaction. But some people, they view life differently than we do. Jim Essex, I agree, Joe. We need more WFO Universe to share and retweet the Lucas Oil stuff. I'm not being critical. It's just an observation. There are hundreds and hundreds of Lucas Oil Series racers, and if they really genuinely believe what they tell me, and I know that they do, I'm not suggesting that they don't. The way that they can show that is by sharing Lucas Oil driver-based content on their social media. That's it. That's all we're talking about, right? Like, oh my gosh, they did something on Stock Eliminator. Share. Because someday it's going to be you. And you're going to be like, why did only 11 people share that? Why did only 20 people share it? Right? Like those numbers should be in the hundreds. And that's how you grow the deal. Agree on that 100%. Exactly. Oh, look at these guys, man. We're getting spammed. That means it's time to get out of here. That's the thing about Twitch. I just get spammed. Is that Twitch? No, that's actually YouTube. So we're going to block that user. And it's gone. That amazing. So the Gator vid was real. The Gator vid was crazy. I just heard about it. I didn't see it. Steve goes, I always stay late at the track. Not everybody's as diehard as us, Steve. Like, we are pretty crazy, all of us. WFO. Leave before the finals? That's just crazy talk. People do it, Monica. They do it. They want to go get ahead of the traffic and miss the final. We experimented with that once at the Gatornationals back in the day of the crossover bridge. We were on the crossover bridge trying to see the final, and then we realized that was dumb. That was a dumb thing that we did. It was kind of early in our evolution. That was a dumb thing. Don't do that ever again. And so we went the other direction, like A/B testing, right? Like we did this, and then the next year, whenever it was, 86, we stayed for the winner's circle, and have never not stayed for the winner's circle. It's the smart move. It's the smart move. Thanks to Alan Reinhart. Thanks to everyone out there. Remember, Karen Stouffer tomorrow, 1 p.m. But I will not be answering you because I will not be live. I am going through a decompression cycle after the first quarter of the year. It's called spring break. Kind of what Alan did last week. Big thanks to everybody who supports the show. Get a shirt. Go to the website, WFO Store. Get a shirt. Get some gear. Get something. Buy. Sell. And thanks to everyone, including Tony Stewart, for coming on. If you didn't see the Tony Stewart Winner's Circle interview, that was pretty good. You should go check it out. Obviously, we're going to try to get Matt Hagan and Trip Tatum before the Vegas 4-wide next week. All right, guys. Appreciate all of you. We'll see you next time right here on WFO Radio. And thanks to Alan Reinhart for doing a great job. And see you next day, tomorrow. WFO.